What is up, everybody? This is Lyle, No Hippie Trucking and Transportation. I'm coming at you from the Conoco, right down the street from the Corinne, Utah Walmart. Delivered my first load today at 07:30, and this, my last load, is dropping off at 2000 or 8 p.m. So I got about 5 hours to burn. Really not a whole bunch to talk about as far as trucking goes, you know. I mean, there's stuff to talk about, but what I wanted to talk about, you know, I said, you know, somebody said that I don't talk about anything. So I figured I'd do a video talking about nothing. And I wanted to talk about a story. I don't know why it came to mind today, but it reminded me of back in the days when I tried to use some food stamps. So I'm just going to tell that story. So I'm going to kind of get a little bit into detail, and a lot of that's just to paint the picture, you know? So back in probably about 1995, I was living with my roommate at the time. White dude, grew up with him since like 1976. Kind of looks like a young version of Howie Long, at least back in the days. So we used to go out and party like every Friday, Saturday night, go out to the clubs, stuff like that. And we used to stop at this liquor store, and I'm mentioning this for anybody that knows Colorado, but they have a street in Colorado called Colfax. It goes all the way from the mountains all the way out east. But this would be like right on the border of Aurora and Denver, Colorado. So we go there, buy a lot of times, it varied, whatever we were in the mood for. It could be tequila, it could be vodka, whatever. But we go there, buy that, buy a bottle of squirt, and then we just take it to the head and then chase it with some squirt. And we were stopping there to pick up our alcohol. And first of all, we were doing that because we had enough money to go to the club. We just didn't have enough money to be buying drinks in the club. So we'd go there, like hammer this stuff before we go in, and then maybe buy a bottle of beer or something like that just to kind of get us through. So we're going there to buy our stuff, and there's a guy out there, and he's selling $200 worth of food stamps, this Pentex camera, and a bottle of Xerius cologne. And you could buy all that for, I think it was $75. It was either $50 or $75. So I was like, bet. Didn't have the money, so I was like, you know what? Hold on to that. I'm gonna be back. So go around, hit the ATM, come back around, give them the $50 or $75, whatever it was, and get these food stamps, the camera, and this bottle of cologne. Now, Xerius wasn't a cologne that I would normally be, I mean, it was some good cologne, but it, you know, it was relative to that age, you know, that time period. But I was normally a gray flannel guy myself. So I'd say that the bottle of cologne had to probably be about $50, $60. The camera, we'll get into that camera, but that camera probably was a $600 or $700 camera. And obviously the $200 of food stamps was worth $200. So buy all this stuff, take it, and anyway, we go to the club that night. Then the next day, he's gonna go over to his parents' house for, you know, do some laundry or something like that, some shit that broke people do. And I'm like, all right, you know, what do you want me to get? Because I'm gonna go buy some food with this food stamp. So, you know, he's like, well, let's get some crab legs and, you know, just all the stuff that you normally wouldn't buy if you were broke. So I go to the store and I buy all this stuff or get all this stuff that I normally wouldn't have bought. Get up to the checkup line, and there was this fine ass girl standing behind me, and I was like, man, I cannot buy this shit with no food stamps now. And this was back in the days, back when they were actual like like bills. They weren't like the little card like you could kind of sneak it in and nobody knows the difference between if this, food stamps or if this like, what it is. But this was real food stamps. So I was like, man, I can't go out like that. So I went ahead and paid for that. And anyway, I'm just like pissed off about it at this point. So buy all this stuff, go back, talk to my roommate. I'm like, here's what the situation is. And hold on. So anyway, what I ended up having to do to use these food stamps was I had to go way down in the hood, kind of back where my dad's church was when he was a pastor. I had to go all the way down there and use those food stamps. I went like super early in the morning, so nobody was there, and then I was able to use those food stamps. But I didn't use those probably for another month or however long it was. But the funny thing about that camera that I'd got, I said this was about 2005 that this happened. I ended up probably selling that camera in about 2000, probably in around 2004, 2005. I sold it to somebody that was into photography, and they didn't buy it for the camera. They bought it for the lens because it had a good lens with it. So I ended up probably selling that for $80 or something like that. So out of the $75 or whatever that we spent, got $200 worth of food, $80 for the camera plus the usage. I think the last time I actually used that camera was in I think it was right when I became a manager in the mortgage business. So this had to have been around 2003, something like that. So I got some good use out of that camera. I mean, it was a better camera than I was a photographer. But anyway, that story came to my mind. I don't remember why it came to my mind, but it did. Something other than trucking. Now back to this trucking thing. I took this load coming out to Utah for a couple different reasons. First of all, I was in a position where I was in Laredo, Texas, coming to Utah. So I knew I was going to be hitting that southern route, so I was going to hit. Now here's something I do want to tell people, because a lot of times they follow the Qualcomm, they don't follow like good directions. I ended up basically getting out of Laredo at some point, so I ended up hitting 10, ended up hitting 25, and then the Qualcomm's trying to take you all the way up to 40, and then cutting across, going down to Gallup, taking 491 or whatever that is, up to 191 to 6 to 15 into Utah. If you're ever on that route, hit the 6 about 20 miles before you get, maybe 30 miles before you hit 25, cut across diagonal, it dumps you off into 40 there. But that's why I ended up taking that, because I knew the weather wasn't going to be bad. I got a little open window right here. I pleaded or pled, whatever, with my fleet manager to get me a load out of here, because I ended up wasting a bunch of time down in Laredo. Ended up sitting for 24 hours on a 1 mile load that I really was doing as a favor. So we're gonna hopefully see if he hooks me up on that or not. But that's kind of what's going on right now. I will, if it's absolutely necessary, deadhead, but I'm not too eager. I haven't been checking I-80 or anything like that, but I'm not looking forward to deadheading to Colorado or Kansas or wherever they might be trying to do. I know they got loads coming out of here. It's just if you're lucky enough to get them. I told my fleet manager I want that load from Nestle in Springvale, Utah, going out to Gaffney, South Carolina. We'll see if he comes through on that or not. Just a suggestion. One thing I am not doing is I am not stopping at the terminal. I thought about it, but I got a decent trailer and I do not want to give it up just because I'm dumb enough to stop in a terminal. So enough about that. Just real quick before I get off here, one of the things they were talking about in the meeting was these scale tickets. I'm not sure if he's expressing himself the way I would express it, but I do think if you're out here scaling every load, you're fucking wasting a bunch of money. I mean, that, to me, anybody that scales every load, I kind of look at that as like people that believe the earth is flat. Because at some point, I do trust my shippers and receivers enough. If my weight gets up there, I'll check it out, but I'm still not going to 100% scale. But on most loads, 99.9% loads, if I'm 34 on the front, the back has to be right. And we're not getting loaded to 46,000, 45,000 pounds. At that point, I might think about scaling, even though I haven't. But, most of the time, if it's 42, if it says it's 42, maybe they're overloading me, maybe they're not. But I am going to trust the gauge in my truck. And I'm going to halfway trust the gauge in the trailer. Like I've mentioned, I don't go scale for the sake of scaling, just to make me feel a little bit better about stuff. But enough about that. Maybe it'll catch up to me, and if it does, it does. I'm willing to take the consequences. Some people are talking about their, scores and stuff like that. I'm not afraid to lose a few points if I got to. Shoot, that's what they're there for. So enough about that. I do appreciate you guys stopping by No Hippie Trucking and Transportation. Listen to my story about nothing, comment, subscribe, and I'm out.